All right. Hey everybody, welcome to Ryan on college football. We are going to talk Big Ten today. Really interesting conference, kind of a microcosm of the rest of college football. We have a lot of standard contenders that are missing, not missing, but they're breaking in new pieces, particularly at quarterback. They're replacing a lot. But then we have at least one in Penn State that is bringing back a lot of experience, particularly on the offense. And we'll see how that goes for them. I think it's going to be a very interesting season in the Big Ten, obviously across college football. Let's get right into it. We're going to start with Penn State. There's currently a lot of hype, shall we say, around Penn State. Starting the season ranked number 2 in the AP poll, which is where Michigan and Ohio State both were in the last couple of years when they went on their championship runs. But Penn State in the past, they've made a habit out of being the bridesmaid and never the bride for the better part of a decade. So what really drives this love that Penn State's getting, obviously, is the return of Drew Aller. How good do we think Drew Aller is going to be? He's going to be he's at least a top 5, maybe 10 quarterback returning in the sport. Obviously, like I said, across this conference and other conferences in the SEC as well, there's a lot of teams that are going to be breaking in new starters. So Drew Aller comes in with a lot of experience. He started for the last 2 seasons, made quite a bit of progress last year. They started pushing the ball downfield a little bit better. Has struggled with consistency at times, but also hasn't had a lot of help from his outside talent. The skill talent they've had has mostly revolved around the tight end position and their running backs, which again they're gonna have a crazy backfield. I mean, Nick Singleton and Katron Allen are both great players. They are going to be similar to Ohio State's crazy backfield last year of Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson. They both rushed for 1,000 yards last year. True dynamic duo back there, and their defense has also been consistently a top 3 defense in the conference. And now they have Jim Knowles, who led the best defense in the country last year at Ohio State. A huge pull for them. And yeah, they're really following the same model that Michigan and Ohio State the last couple of years. Not just with the little statistical anomaly in that they're both starting at number 2 in the AP poll, but also the main model of they're returning lots of guys who could have made the jump to the NFL last year, but decide to come back for one more year to really do something special. And a lot of people think they can get it done, and I might be among that group of people who thinks that they can do this. But again, a lot of these things, right? They've had solid quarterback play. They've had crazy backfields in the past. Their defense, like I said, has been consistently tops in the Big Ten for several years now. So what makes this team different? And I think that starts at the receiver position right now. They're going to get Caden Saunders back from injury. They hit the portal hard to get Traver Pena from Syracuse and Devonta Ross from Troy. Both of them had breakout seasons last year, and they also have Kyron Hudson from USC, who was not some stud, some star player, but he's been a very productive player for USC over the years. Yeah, there just aren't question marks on this team. I think Jake Butt recently made the point that this offensive line has been kind of like, because of the lack of receiver play. I think that's been the main excuse that a lot of people have made it at Penn State, or for Penn State rather. But the overlooked thing is that their offensive line hasn't really played at a championship caliber either. But this year, they look the part. Yeah, I mean, I think really the biggest question mark you have is James is can they actually do it? Can they actually win those big games? We've just not seen them do it over the last 10 years. Is this the team that gets it done? So let's take a look at their schedule. They're not doing anything in the non-conference. Their non-conference is hot garbage, but what are you going to do? Then that first big test they're going to get, that whiteout game against Oregon, going to be a fantastic atmosphere. Should be a really fun game. We'll find out a lot about Penn State watching that game. And then the big early November test against Ohio State, right? Like those are the kinds of games that Penn State has not won in the past, and they need to win these games this year if they want to accomplish the things that they want to accomplish. Nothing else kind of sticks out as something that is all that dangerous. Maybe that Indiana game after what's going to be a very emotional game against Ohio State could be a little trap game for them. But I think this Penn State team is going to be really, really good. They're set up really, really well in their schedule. Should be a season to look forward to for Penn State. So let's talk about Ohio State. They're going to bring back some key pieces, Jeremiah Smith being the most famous of them. They're going to bring back Carnell Tate at the receiver position. Offensive line, they're going to shift around a little bit, but you bring back Carson Hinsman. You bring back Tegra, who split time with Austin Searveld. And Ryan Day has been just enamored with him. Talks glowingly about him in every press conference he gives. It looks like he is probably going to start at left tackle. And then they brought in some transfers to kind of fill out that line. Sonny Styles they bring back, who is just an absolute freak. Played safety for a while, but is so massive that he can play linebacker too. He's going to don the block O. Total stud. Bringing back the infamously handsy Davison Igbinosun, and obviously Caleb Downs, who alongside Jeremiah Smith is one of the best players in the country. But that still leaves quite a few question marks, notably at quarterback, who they will have Julian Sayin, but 5-star kid, all everything, right? But redshirt freshman. You never know what you're going to get, especially early, and obviously they open with Texas. So that leaves some room for doubt. I mean, this is a team that won a national championship last year, so what you have to look across the board at where are they going to be better, where are they going to be worse, and if they're just as good as they were last year, they're going to be right there, back in the same position potentially, with a chance to repeat. And so you look at receiver, they're going to be just fine. Obviously, you have Jeremiah Smith. Carnell Tate could break out. He had a really big game against Texas last year, and Brandon Innes is going to jump in the slot, and I think he's going to be just fine. He's a captain this year. I think they're really high on him and his potential. Definitely a player to watch. And when you're breaking in a new quarterback, the slot is your friend. The guys close to the ball, they're your friends. And so you look at the tight end position. That's another massive spot for Ohio State this year. And they brought in Max Clare from Purdue. Absolute stud. And Jelani Thurman is another breakout potential player. He was just a freak. Super athletic kid. Just a guy you want to be able to put all of the pieces together. Because if he does, he is going to light up the world. Then, like we noted, at linebacker, Sonny Styles is a freak. Arvell Reese, another freak. He played in all their games. He looked really good in them. Just going to be kind of taking over that starting role from Cody Simon from last year. Obviously, at defensive back, you're not worried about Caleb Downs, Igbinosun, although you'd love for him to cut down on the penalties. Didn't really give up big plays. You're not worried about him as someone who's just going to get torched. But you look the thing in the secondary that you're most worried about is what they're going to do at nickel. Like how do you replace Lathan Ransom or not Lathan Ransom? How do you replace Jordan Hancock? They have been pushing Caleb Downs to play the nickel because they're more confident in their other options at safety and trying to get Caleb Downs closer to the ball, which is what they were doing towards the end of the season last year. Could be very interesting. Yeah, really, really interested in how that secondary is going to play out. The biggest questions to me are the defensive line. You're replacing 4 starters. Like that's a lot. Edric Houston is a stud. I think you're confident in what you're going to get on the edges. CJ Hicks is a really intriguing option out there. Bo Atkinson, stud. But the things that you're concerned about, like Edric Houston earlier in camp, has an injury. Like what happens then? Like what's the rotation at the defensive line? I think that's the biggest concern. What's the rotation and, to keep guys fresh, but also what happens if somebody goes down, particularly in the interior. They just don't have experience, and that is a concern. The other two things, right? Like what's the running game looking like? I know they're really confident in James Peoples, but we just haven't seen him. And CJ Donaldson is effective, but is not anywhere near what a Travion Henderson or a Quinshon Judkins could give you. So a team breaking in a new quarterback, you'd love to be able to run the football. And, how confidently are you going to be able to do that? And then obviously Julian Sand, right? Like, what are you getting at quarterback here? The physical tools are there, but quarterback is more than just being able to throw the ball well. And can you do all of those things, right? Like, one of the things, like, Will Howard, not exactly a 5-star all-everything talent, but he just did the things that made the offense move well. He did everything right in those regards. And you're counting on Julian Sane to do that, and, we'll see. The other thing to be concerned about is obviously you're replacing 2 coordinators. This is just kind of what happens when you win national championships. Players move on, players get opportunities to go play at the next level, and so do coaches. You lost both of your coaches to the NFL as well, or both of your coordinators. Or no, you didn't lose both of your coordinators to the NFL. You lost a coordinator to the NFL. You lost a defensive coordinator to another team. You're replacing an offensive line coach who went to the NFL. Like you're just replacing a lot, and your coaching staff as well. And Brian Hartline is going to be stepping up. Obviously, what he's capable of as a receiver coach, but this is going to be his first time calling plays as a full-time offensive coordinator in 2023. And they wanted to give him play calling duty, but eventually didn't. And so, has he grown in a way that you can be confident in their ability to continue to have the success that they had last year? Yeah, let's take a look at that schedule. This is a sneaky tough schedule. Obviously, you have the 3 big games, Texas, Penn State there. Both teams coming off of a bye, and then the Michigan game at the end of the year is always huge, no matter how good both of those teams are going to be, as we saw last year. Sorry, Ohio State fans. Obviously this Texas game is going to be massive. You can afford to lose that game, but you don't want to. That Washington game is sneaky, as we'll see later. I'm really high on Washington. Then you have those back-to-back road trips at Illinois and Wisconsin. You're on the road a lot early in conference play. Wisconsin's always a tough place to play, even though they have not been very good. And Illinois is a solid team, a physical team, a team that's not going to just go quietly. So really fun schedule. Obviously, those Texas, Penn State, and Michigan games, they're the ones that You got to win 2 of those 3 games, or you got to win at least one of those 3 games if you want a shot at the playoff. Um, if you want a shot at a Big Ten title, which they haven't won since Ryan Day's second year, since 2020, um, you're going to have to win at least one of those Penn State or Michigan games. So I guess we'll see. Then the other kind of standard contender in the conference is Oregon. And it's kind of hard to tell what to make of Oregon this year. They're 104th in returning production, which is tough. I mean, they're replacing essentially their entire offense, 4 or 5 starters up front, all of their receivers, unfortunately, partially due to injury with the Evan Stewart news, and obviously your quarterback. We saw what Dante Moore is potentially capable of at UCLA a couple of years ago. Certainly has potential, but you're going to need him to be a lot more consistent than he was. What's that step up for him in development the last year and a half that he's been at Oregon? And yeah, I mean, Dylan Gabriel, again, not a crazy freak talent, but someone who is just consistent, did everything, all the little things right, made the right decisions, could get the ball where he needed to accurately 95% of the time. And, can you count on Dante Moore for that? Is going to be a major question. Obviously, they raided the portal like they seem to have to do every year. Mekhi Hughes from Tulane, absolute difference maker, 1,400 yards, each of the last 2 seasons at Tulane. I mean, he is a star in the making. That's definitely something you want when you're breaking in a new quarterback, is just to be able to run the football. And Mekhi Hughes is a difference maker in that backfield. They've got plenty of talent at receiver, including last year's number 1 recruit at the receiver position in DeCorian Moore. Jeremiah McClellan, Kyle Casper are also guys to look out for. Like, there's talent there. There's just not experience. And, that can lead to some, various outcomes. Mateo Uyunglele coming back for that defensive line is huge. He's a stud. I really expect this defense to come along a lot faster. Or no, rather, I anticipated the defense coming along a lot faster for Oregon than the offense, but that's not been the case, which has been strange given Dan Lanning's background. And I think the defense might catch up this year, and that could be a scary thing. But maybe it's catching up because the offense this year isn't going to be what it has. And I think this is the kind of year for Oregon that if you want to establish yourself as a true power player, it's these reloading years that you do it in. It's the years where you say, they're losing a lot. They're replacing a lot of guys. Are they going to be good enough? And you expect a down year. If you come out swinging in these years where you're going to reload, that's what power teams do. And if Oregon wants to establish themselves as a true player, I think that's what you want to see from them this year. So let's take a look at their schedule. The immediately obvious thing here is a super favorable schedule, right? You don't see an Ohio State on this list. You don't see Michigan on this list. You see Penn State. Penn State is their other dominant or power player in the Big Ten team that you see on this list, and they play them in September. Obviously, whiteout game, going to be a tough game. But outside of that, this is a very workable schedule. Those last 2 weeks of the season are where you're really going to make or break the season. I think USC is going to be a very interesting matchup, and then Washington, who I just love this year. Those are going to be the big-time games for them this year. Your other power player in the Big Ten is the 2023 national championship team, Michigan. They're going to be breaking in a new quarterback as well, finally, because they didn't have one last year, practically speaking. But I think, we know what you're going to get out of Michigan. That defense is going to be crazy. They're going to be good up front. They're going to be able to run the football. They did all those things last year, and they went 8-5. Yeah, they beat Ohio State. Yeah, they beat Alabama at the end of the year, but they still went 8-5. So the question is how good is Bryce Underwood? Because if he is a mediocre quarterback, he comes in as a true freshman. Like there's only so much you can truly expect from him. Like you don't expect him to be the second coming of Trevor Lawrence, a guy who could truly come in and compete at the highest levels of college football as a true freshman. Like if he's that, then Michigan is a national championship contender. Obviously, just given what they have elsewhere. But like his level is going to determine how good this team is. If he's going to go through lots of growing pains, then you could see another 8-5 season at Michigan. How quickly he realizes his potential will determine how quickly this Michigan team is back in the national spotlight. Yeah, I mean the beat seems to love him. So if that comes to pass, then this Michigan team is going to be really good. I think the realistic scenario, what you realistically want out of him is you want him to limit those freshman mistakes, limit those turnovers, play within himself, play within the offense, and if he can do that, this Michigan team can still do damage, and eventually he will figure out how to be, that gunslinger, and truly take this offense to the next level. But I don't think you need that from him this year. I think you just need him to play within the offense, let the talent around you, let the physicality of your team be the guiding force. So let's take a look at the schedule. That Oklahoma game in week 2, super intriguing. Oklahoma is a weird team. Not sure what we're expecting out of them, and I think, and same thing with that Nebraska game without Sharon Moore to guide them that week. Will be both really interesting games, but that October stretch where they play USC, Washington, and then Michigan State, I think that's gonna set them apart if they're really out to contend. So super intrigued by that. Obviously, that Ohio State game will loom large, but super interesting season out for Michigan. I think Bryce Underwood obviously is the key. Like you say that about a lot of teams, like, oh, the quarterback is the key, but at Michigan, you know what you're going to get elsewhere, and so the main question mark is what are they going to get out of Bryce Underwood? So I guess we'll find out. So then we're going to talk about Nebraska. Year 2 of Dylan Raiola, year 3 of Matt Rule, and I guess we're going to find out is the year 3 rule in effect for Matt Rule. At Temple, went 2-10, went 6-6, went 10-4. At Baylor, 1-11, 7-6, 11-3. At Nebraska, 5-7, 7-6. What do we got for us this year? Sneaky important thing that I think a lot of people forgot is that late in the year last year, Dana Holgorsen takes over at offensive coordinator. Dana Holgorsen is elite offensive mind. I think the way his tenure at West Virginia and then Houston ended, a lot of people forget that. But that offense could be really fun to watch. I expect them to be really good up front. The question is going to be, where do those explosive plays come from? They've been pretty average in that front. That's where you need to get better. You need to be more explosive. And we know Dana Holgorsen can draw up the plays. We know he can dial them up. But where are the playmakers on the outside? You need that, particularly in the passing game. They were 96th in yards per attempt last year. That's not good enough. They need to get better there. And that's if they can do that, then they can be a really dangerous team. So let's take a look at the schedule. Game against UC, week 1. Interesting game. Should be fun. Obviously, that Michigan game, that's the one. If this team is going to pop, they need to pop there. Michigan's going to be really good. So if you lose that game, you lose that game. But you need to show up there. Then late in the year, that USC game, that's another super intriguing game. A game against a team that's in that second, that's trying to push, that's in that second tier of the Big Ten. They're trying to push back. They're trying to push into that first tier. There's a lot of teams like that in the Big Ten this year. Nebraska, Illinois, USC. They're Washington. They're trying to push their way in, and that's one of those games. And I think that's going to be really important for them to break in. And that Iowa game at the end of the year, especially coming off of what could be an emotional game against Penn State, you can't drop games like that. Like, that's going to be a really big game for them. You look at these teams, you look at this season, and you pencil in 2 losses in your mind, right? That Michigan game, you almost pencil in as a loss. That Penn State game, you almost pencil in as a loss. But you look around, and so that USC game, that Iowa game, those are the kinds of games that you need to get done, that they haven't in the past. If they want to compete for something more than a bowl game, if they want to push for a playoff, those are the kinds of games that you have to win. Another popular dark horse in the Big Ten this year, Illinois, is the big thing that is intriguing about them is, one, 10-win team last year. I feel like a lot of people missed that. I think they won 9 regular season games, and then they beat South Carolina in their bowl game. South Carolina, a big dark horse contender in the SEC. So obviously that's a really big win for Illinois. And then they're 4th in the country in returning production. 4th. That sets them up to potentially repeat that effort. 18 starters on this team are coming back, including all Big Ten first team safety Xavier Scott, who was a finalist for the Thorpe Award. 3rd team all Big Ten tackle J.C. Davis, along with the entire offensive line. 3rd team all Big Ten edge Gabe, I'm going to butcher this name, Jacos, probably. And quarterback Luke Altmaier. Again, not a world-beating quarterback there, but a guy who's going to make the right decisions, be the point guard of that offense. You look at their stats last year, they were 86th in pass yards a game, 79th in run yards a game, 65th in rush defense, 78th in pass defense. You look at that and you say, that's not world-beating, yet somehow they won 10 games. How do you win 10 games with statistics that shit? Well, they're 15th in third down conversion percentage at 46%. If you can do that, you have a chance in any game. But you also need to get off the field a little bit better. That's kind of their one major problem, is they were 114th in opponent third down conversion percentage. So you got to show up in the big games for one. So that's a thing that hurt them, is they performed really poorly in the bigger games against better teams through most of their schedule. So let's take a look at the schedule this year. Like, the key thing for them, I think, really is you only pencil in the 1 loss. Right, that Ohio State game, like, you're going to show up for that game. You get it at home. The first time the Illinois game has been played since J.T. Barrett was the quarterback at Ohio State. It's been almost 10 years since that game was played. So they're going to be juiced for that game. But that's really the only one you look and you say, man, I'm not sure if they have a chance in that game. They're going to be totally out-talented potentially in that game. All the other games they have chances in. You got to look at that Indiana game. It's another team that's in that second tier that wants to push for that top tier. You look at that Washington game, another another team in that tier, USC, another team in that tier, if you can win those games, you're going to give yourself a chance. That Duke game early also intriguing. I know it's Duke, but they have Darian Mensah, who is a really interesting quarterback. But you got to win the games against light teams. You can't lose those close games. Yeah, interesting season coming up for it. That was a mistake. Let's talk about USC. It was really easy to look at their season last year and say they went 7-6. Like, it's terrible. It's not good for USC. And you might say, well, they went 7-6 last year, which is much worse than they did last year. They're trending in the wrong direction. And just to say, dismiss them outright. But if you look a little closer, that includes 5 games, which were Big Ten games, that they had leads in the fourth. They lost to Michigan by 3, a game they led in the fourth quarter. They lost by a touchdown to Minnesota, a game they led in the fourth quarter. They lost in overtime to Penn State, which was a game they led in the fourth quarter. They lost by a point to Maryland in an absolute collapse. And of course, they lose by 5 to Washington, another game they lead in the fourth quarter. Tough. But that's, flip of a coin on most of those games, and suddenly they look like a much better team last year. So I think that 7-6 team is a lot better than people were giving them credit for. That doesn't just flip around at the turn of at the flip of a season, right? Like everyone remembers the 3-9 Nebraska team that lost all of those one-score games, and it's not suddenly any different the next season. Like, things do have to change; they do have to get better. But let's not dismiss them outright because they were a 7-6 team last year. Jaden Mayava is taking the reins again this year after he took over midseason for Miller Moss. I think he, under the tutelage of Lincoln Riley, could be very, very dangerous. They've got talent at receiver with Jacoby Lane and Mekhi Lemon. Obviously, this defense needs to get better, right? That's been the thing with Lincoln Riley. That's been the thing with USC is what they can be on offense, and they're not always that. They weren't that last year. But man, if that defense could just come together, they could be incredibly, incredibly dangerous. In particular, you need them to get in the backfield. They do not create enough chaos in the backfield. They generated just over a sack and a half a game, just over 4 tackles for loss a game. Those are both in the hundreds across the country. That is just not good enough. They need to get in the backfield more. They need to create more chaos. But they brought in Keyshawn Silver and Jamal Jarrett to shore up the interior of that defensive line. One of the most important things here is that defensive line, that will be the biggest defensive line that USC has had under Lincoln Riley. They get pushed around too much, and I think this is not a defensive line that's going to get pushed around. Are they athletic enough to push their way into the backfield? I don't know. But hopefully they're not just getting run over like they were at times last year. If you remember what that Michigan game looked like, brutal. The other thing that's brutal is their schedule. It is tough. And you look at game against Michigan, at Notre Dame the following week. You got a game at Oregon. Those Illinois-Nebraska games are not easy. That Iowa game is not easy. Like, this is a team that could be a lot better, and maybe they don't show how much better they are in their record. I think what you want to see if you're a USC fan is you want to see this defense look like a freaking defense and not what it's looked like the past few years. You want to see this team win games against those other teams who are pushing for top tier status. You want to win those. You want to win those games against Nebraska. You want to win those games against Illinois, and you want to push Oregon. You want to push Notre Dame. You want to push Michigan. Obviously, you want to win those games, but if you're being realistic, you like at the very least you want to be in those games, and you want to look like you belong on the field. Like sometimes you don't get it done. It happens. But you want to look like you belong on the field this year, at the very least. because they haven't. But it is a very tough schedule for USC. Hopefully, they don't reduce that toughness in the future because Lincoln Riley is scared to play Notre Dame. Do not cancel rivalry games, please. We want rivalries to continue. This is stupid. Don't be a wimp. So let's talk about Washington. I've mentioned this in a couple of other teams' breakdowns, but I believe in Washington. I think they're going to be really freaking good. And one of those reasons is Damon Williams Jr. Once he took over for Will Rogers late in the year, he looked great. Obviously, he's got some growth to do. He's got some development to do. But man, did he torch Louisville in that bowl game. I know they lost that game, but threw for over 400 yards, 5 touchdowns. That kid is a stud. He is a difference maker. He is a player to watch. He is super fun. One of the bigger reasons why I believe in Washington. That kid is good. I expect the offensive line to be a lot better than it was last year, and that should help give Jonah Coleman room to run. He already ran for over 1,000 yards last year behind what was a suspect offensive line. And if you can get better up front, that should open up more lanes for him. I think he will have a much better season this year. And the defense, I don't know what to make of the defense. They were inconsistent last year. They had their moments, and then they would give up 40 points to Iowa, of all freaking teams. I don't know how that happens. But you're bringing in Ryan Walters. And I know if you're just looking at the last spot on his resume at Purdue, you would say, whatever. Purdue head coach. They sucked. But if you remember a few years ago at Illinois, they had the best scoring defense in the country under the tutelage of and if you can bring that to Washington, I think that's gonna be great. How much impact does he have in 1 year, I think, is the main question. Hopefully Zach Dufree is healthy. I think that alone could help this defense. He can be a real game wrecker. The other thing you have to look at with this team is their struggles on the road. They played 6 games in Husky Stadium. They won all 6 of those games. They played 7 games not in Husky Stadium. 5 of them were on the road. 2 of them were at neutral sites. They lost all of those games. You can't have that. You're going to have to win some road games if you want to be much more than 500. So please win a road game. Let's take a look at the schedule. Nothing crazy. Non-conference Washington State games should be fun. I'm glad that they continue to play their rivals, unlike potentially some teams on the West Coast. Please play your rivals. That Ohio State game is super intriguing. And that little stretch there, Michigan and Illinois in back-to-back weeks, is tough. And that Oregon game at the end of the year is going to be so fun. Not the easiest of schedules. You play some tough road games. Again, Wisconsin has not been great, and I'm not sure how good they're going to be this year. But that's a tough place to play. Camp Randall is super fun, super loud. Going to be a really intriguing season for Washington. Let's talk about Iowa. Obviously, we know what Iowa is on defense. The defense is going to defense, right? Iowa's defense is going to be really good. The question with Iowa, every single year, and it's the question again this year, is can they score? You're bringing in Mark Gronkowski from South Dakota State. Intriguing player. We'll see. The offensive line should improve. They have 122 combined starts under their belt. Their offensive line is going to be good. What can they throw the football? Is that going year 2 under Tim Lester? It felt like they had a spark sometimes. Last year, how much improvement did we make? That's the question. I don't know what else to say with Iowa here. You got to hope that that offense improves. Let's take a look at the schedule. Iowa State game, week 2, gonna be great. We love rivalry games. Should be a super fun game. Again, that's an interesting matchup in terms of strengths on weaknesses. Iowa State last year not very good at defending the run. So if Iowa can do what they do, run the football well, will be a fun game. Then that Indiana game is going to be really important for them. And then a couple of weeks later, after their bye, that Wisconsin game is going to be huge. And that Nebraska game at the end of the year, very intriguing game for them. Again, not an easy schedule. They got Oregon and Penn State in there. There's a lot of like tier 1 and tier 2 Big Ten teams in that mix. So tough schedule, but lots of interesting games for Iowa in that schedule. Let's talk about one of their rivals in conference rivals in Wisconsin. The biggest question you have with Wisconsin, what the hell is their identity? Right, in their first 2 years, they have struggled to find that under Fickell. They tried the dairy raid. It has not worked. But they brought in a new offensive coordinator in Jeff Grimes. At Baylor and Kansas, they really relied on the run game and the offensive line, and that's what that feels like Wisconsin, right? Like that's vintage Wisconsin. You got to hope that they're bringing that back. I think a lot of people, when Fickell was hired, anticipated more modern offense, certainly, but an offense that still felt like Wisconsin. That's why that felt like a fit, and that's not what happened, and we're hoping to get back to that this year. But how quickly are we going to get there is a major question, and the offensive line is going to be one of their major questions this year. They're trying to figure out what those best 5 are. We're not sure where they're going to land yet. That's something that we're hoping to get sorted out quickly. We'll see. And then you're bringing in an experienced quarterback in Billy Edwards Jr. from Maryland. He's not going to be the best quarterback in your conference. I don't know that you need him to be if you are running the offense that you should be running. But he's a player who can be that point guard of your offense. Should be a step up from what they had last year. So you hope that this is a team that can improve. But I'm not sure how much hope for that there is right now in Madison. Definitely a lot of people down on the program right now. But at this point, they just need to see some improvement. The problem for them is the schedule is brutal. There are 7 teams on the schedule that are higher ranked than them in the S&P Plus, and Washington and Minnesota are right behind them. And obviously, you know how I feel about Washington, how good I think they're going to be. So, yeah, it's tough. That Alabama game is probably going to be just as brutal, if not worse, than it was last year. You need to win that Maryland game that following week. Like, if you want to be a bowl team again, like that's a game you got to get. And then they played Michigan, they play Ohio State, they play Oregon, and in the middle of all of that, they play Iowa. Absolutely freaking brutal October. They could not. It's possible that they do not win a game in the month of October. That is an absolutely brutal stretch, and it doesn't. Like, it gets better, but better looks like Washington at Indiana against Illinois and then at Minnesota. That's what November looks like. This is a freaking brutal schedule for Wisconsin. Like, God bless. That's tough. Yeah. I'm sorry, Wisconsin. I don't think it's going to be better for you this year. Even if I think Wisconsin. This is another team that could improve from last year, and you not see it in the record column. It's freaking tough. Yeah. So let's talk about Indiana. I mean, the question is can they back up what they did last year? They had a great season, a historic season for Indiana, but they're losing a ton. They're replacing a quarterback with Fernando Mendoza from Cal. Very highly sought after transfer target. Played really well at times. Should be an interesting player there. That went heavy on attacking the portal up front. They're bringing back Elijah Surratt at receiver. I don't think this offense is going to miss a beat. I think this offense is going to be just as good as it was last year. They did really good up front on the other side of the ball as well, retaining Mikhail Camera, and they're bringing in their other starters from the portal as well. I just don't know how good they can be on defense. I don't think they're going to be as good as they were last year. Even if they are as good as they were last year, I'm not sure you're going to be able to return to the playoff. They have a little bit of a tougher schedule, but I think you don't need to be 11-1. You don't need to be 10-2 to back up the fact that Indiana can be a real player here. You just need to prove that that wasn't a fluke, and that you're going to continue to be a competitor here in the Big Ten. Let's look at that schedule. Obviously, they're doing nothing in the non-conference. I gave them benefit of the doubt last year. I can give them benefit of the doubt this year, because they're not used. They're used to scheduling for, I want to make a bowl game and I need 3 free wins. I would hope that they schedule better in the future based on their canceling of the Virginia game in favor of a bye game. It seems like they're not going to do that, which is disappointing. I think every power conference team should play 10 power conference games, whether that means that they're playing 9 conference games and 1 power conference team out of conference, or that means they're playing 8 and they're playing 2 power conference teams out of conference. I don't care how you get that done. I think you should play 10 power conference games. And the fact that Indiana seems like they're going to refuse to do that kind of pisses me off. Not going to lie. But I do hope that they continue to be good. I think that's fun. Obviously, you got Oregon and Penn State games. Those are going to be tough games. Those late November or late September games to start conference play against Illinois and Iowa, that's going to show you how good this Indiana team can be. That's when you'll find out, like, do I need to be paying attention to Indiana this year? You'll find out in those 2 games. Yeah. Let's take a look at Michigan State. They are 16th in the country in returning production, which is intriguing. That's good for 4th in the Big Ten. They bring back, most notably, Aiden Childs, who flashed a lot of potential last year. Can make some really fun throws, is an athlete. You pair him with Nick Marsh and transfer receiver Amari Kelly, who was all CUSA at Middle Tennessee last year. Very intriguing team. But if you look at Jonathan Smith's tenure at Oregon State, that rebuild took some time. I think this rebuild is going to take some time. I think they're on the right track, though. And I think this is a team that, if it continues to on the same pace as it seems to be, I think this is a team that can make a bowl game. If you're a Michigan State fan, I think you want this to go well, but I think you know what this team looked like when he took over. I think it's going to take time, and it's going to take time. But I think you got the right guy. I think Jonathan Smith is a good coach, and I think this is going in the right direction. I think you're going to start to see that this year. But they need to get better on third down on both sides of the ball if they want to make that happen. Let's take a look at the schedule. I think the schedule is workable. There's only 2 games that I say you pencil in as a loss, right? Like, you're penciling that Penn State game in as a loss. You're penciling that Michigan game in as a loss. Otherwise, I think any other game on the schedule is winnable. Those USC and Nebraska games are the next most difficult on paper. But the problem, obviously, with a team that is fighting for bowl games and not for something more, is that you can't take any of those games for schedule, like, for granted. Like, all of those games are games that they can lose. There's not a game on there where you say, oh, yeah, they'll win that. No question. They don't have anything like that once conference play starts. And but there's not a ton of games in there where you go, man, they're just outclassed in these games. So I think it's workable. I think if you need at least 6 of these. Let's make a bowl game. I think it's doable. So good luck. Minnesota. Question of the day: how many years has PJ Fleck been in Minnesota? Answer: 8. That seems crazy. Doesn't seem like he's been there that long. But he'll be entering his 9th season this year. That feels crazy to me. Makes me feel super old. Not just the fact that I'm balding. They had top 5 defense in yards per game last year. Top 5. And one of the, they play complementary football. That's a calling card of Minnesota. Under PJ Fleck, they were top 20 in time of possession. They were 21st in third down conversions on offense. It means their offense just stayed on the field. And so, how good that defense, I don't know. But their offense never let the other team to be on the field that long. But their other offensive stats leave a lot to be desired. But that's part of the MO of Minnesota. They're trying to shorten the game, keep their offense on the field, keep the other offense off the field, and they were able to do that. But part of that was Max Brosmer. Just being experienced, being poised, staying, making all the right decisions. And you're breaking in a redshirt freshman in Drake Lindsey. You've got unproven receivers. I question whether they're going to be able to do that again this year. And even though I expect the defense to be as good as it was last year, if you can't play complementary football, I'm not sure how well you can, if statistically it's going to look that way. The other thing that I think is a concern for Minnesota is last year was the first year that as a team, Minnesota did not rush for 2,000 yards under PJ Fleck. I think you need that back, especially breaking in a redshirt freshman quarterback. I think you need to be able to run the football better if they want to have the success that they're used to having. Let's look at the schedule. Not an easy schedule, but very workable. I mean, you pencil in losses for Ohio State and Oregon. Then the stretch that's going to define their season is in October. You play Nebraska, then Iowa, then Michigan State in back-to-back weeks. That's the key stretch. Obviously, you get a big game against Wisconsin at the end of the year for the Paul Bunyan Axe. That'll be big for them. But that late October, early November stretch, that's the key stretch for them. And that's the stretch that you're going to find out if this team is going to be as good as they want to be. Whether or not this team is successful will be determined in that stretch. Let's take a look at Rutgers. Another coach that has been at their school for a long time is Schiano at Rutgers. Has now been there for 5 seasons. Again, that seems crazy to me. But he has definitely turned Rutgers into a respectable program again. They've made a bowl game the last 2 seasons, and they are 8th in returning production. They return Callie McManus, their quarterback, and most of their offensive line. They bring in Eric O'Neill, who had 13 sacks at James Madison last year, which hopefully helps them get off the field more, which they struggled to do at times. I think you can expect another respectable year for Rutgers. They're not going to be world beaters, obviously, but I think they'll be respectable again. The problem for them, schedule is brutal. If you want to, you play Ohio State, you play Penn State, you play Oregon, you play Illinois, you can almost guarantee losses there. So then you need 3 of Iowa, Minnesota, Washington, Purdue, and Maryland. You feel pretty good about Purdue. You feel okay about Maryland, which means you need one of Iowa, Washington, Minnesota. Like, those are tough games. Tough. You need 3 of those to make a bowl game. I think that's pretty brutal. I'm not sure that they're going to be able to get that done. But let's talk UCLA. Obviously, major story in the offseason is the Nico Iamaleava drama at Tennessee, and ultimately him landing at UCLA. That putting that drama aside, for UCLA, that's a huge win. I think massive step up in what they would have had. No offense to Joey Aguilar, and certainly a massive step up from what they've had in the past, or not in the past, but last year at the position. But what else they have? They're returning essentially no one. They could not run the football last year. They're hoping that Cal transfer Javian Thomas and Michigan State transfer Jalen Berger. I put MSU transfer. That could be a lot of things. Jalen Berger. I'm not looking it up. But they're hoping that they play major roles in fixing that. They are breaking in 2 new coordinators in year 2 of Deshaun Foster. 2 new coordinators that quickly is not a good sign. How much do we expect to change with those changes? I gotta be honest, I don't have a ton of faith that this is going to work out. But let's look at the schedule. Utah game, interesting. UNLV game, also interesting. That's a tough schedule. Ohio State, Washington, USC, Nebraska. Really tough November. You got Penn State on that schedule. I don't know. I'm sorry, UCLA. I don't think this is going to go well. But we'll see. Like, on paper, I don't think this goes well for UCLA. But if Nico is as good as Nico thinks he is, then maybe UCLA can be really good. Let's talk about Maryland. I don't know what to make of Maryland. Like, how happy are you as Maryland fans? Are you happy? We've gone 33-41 over the last 6 seasons with Mike Locksley. You went 4-8 last year, and by his own admission, you lost the locker room because of that night. Like, is this seat hot? Like, or are we okay with this? Like, I don't know what the expectations of Maryland are. I just don't know. So, like, is this a seat that's warming? Or are we concerned about the trajectory of this program? They've had promising years with Taulia Tagovailoa. They're hoping to rebound this year, but I don't see it. I'm not trying to be a doomer. I just don't know. I don't see it. If I'm a Maryland fan, I want him on the hot seat. I like him, though. He's a very likable guy. I see why people can get behind him, but I don't know at what point is this not good enough, or maybe we're just not investing enough resources. Like, I don't know. Let's look at the schedule. Nothing backbreaking on here, but a lot of games against teams that I just don't think Maryland is better than, and I think that's the trouble here. But I mean, you look at games at Wisconsin, like we said, we don't expect a ton out of, but it's on the road. UCLA, we don't expect a ton out of, but also on the road. Rutgers, we don't expect a ton out of, but they're also on the road. Like, there are winnable games here. Like, I think this is a workable schedule. Like, if Maryland is a solid, like, they don't have to be a great team. They can just be respectable. And I think they can find wins on the schedule. So, and that's to me why it's like, if you don't make a ball game with this schedule, because there are very winnable games here. I don't know. I'm not a Maryland fan, so I can't tell you what the expectation there is, but I would want more. Northwestern, another team, I don't know what expectations are. Right, David Braun in 2023, very admirable job. They went 8-5 for a team that expected to win like 2 games and taking over obviously at the very last second because of the whole hazing situation. But last year 4-8. Preston Stone taking over at quarterback. Interesting player. Split time early with Kevin Jennings at SMU. He's an experienced guy. He's not going to make mistakes, which was a problem for Northwestern. They did turn the ball over a little bit last year. They went really hard in the portal because they had to go really hard in the portal. I don't know if that's going to pay off. I don't know. Let's look at the schedule. Tulane game, interesting. I really like Tulane. I think Tulane's a really good freaking football team. So I think they're losing that game. You play Oregon, you play Penn State, you play Michigan, you play USC on the road on a Friday night. You are coming off of a bye, so it's not quite as bad. You play at Illinois, you play Nebraska. It's a tough schedule. I do not expect a great year for Northwestern. I'm sorry. But nobody ever expects a great year for Northwestern, and sometimes they have solid seasons. Sometimes they have really good seasons. I like David Braun. I wish the best for them. I just don't. I don't know. I don't see it for them this year. Purdue, another team. Well, I think I have a better understanding of what expectations are at Purdue, but they returned very little from last year. I think that's fine for them because they sucked last year. What do you expect the ceiling to be? I don't know what expectations are this year. Like what's the ceiling for Barry Odom? He brings a very unique and effective offense, which is I think the formula for what Purdue has done. When Purdue has been successful, they have had really interesting, fun, good offenses that were unique. I wouldn't call them gimmicky because they haven't always been gimmicky, but they were really effective and they had unique aspects to them. But that's what's been the formula for Purdue. And I really like Ryan Walters. Seems like a great guy, but that was not what he was trying to do. And I just think that was a tough turnaround, a tough transition for Purdue. I think this is going to be much better suited for the style that Purdue can work with. So I think they made the right hire. I think it's going to take time. I don't think it's going to happen this year, but I think this is a program that could be a lot better. That could be going in the right direction. You take a look at that schedule. I think this October stretch, if you want to make a bowl game, you have to win your non-conference games that aren't Notre Dame. I'm sorry, you have to play Notre Dame. That sucks for you. But you have to win those games, and then this October stretch, you get Minnesota, you get Northwestern, you get Rutgers. That is a key stretch. If you can win 2 of those games, like you need to win 3 of those games if you want to make a bowl game, probably. But if you want to come out and say and have a successful year, have a year with things to look forward to, you go win a couple of those games, and you look around and you start going, we went 4-8 or we went 5-7, and you'll have a lot better feel. You'll have a lot better sense of what this program could look like in the future. That's what I think. Yeah. So that wraps up all of the teams in the Big Ten. That's my thoughts. Let me know what you think. If you have teams that you're dark horse teams, my dark horse team is Washington. I think Washington is going to be really good. If you disagree with anything I said, let me know in the comments. Yeah. Thank you for listening. If you made it this far, I will see you next time. Thanks.